Well, I don't know where the rest of them are, but maybe they're watching online. Call this the command to bless. Some people say, wait a minute, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. Where's the command to bless? A week or two, I mentioned this commandment. We were here, and somehow it got brought up that it was one of the commandments in God's laws. And no, it's not one of the 10 commandments. I don't want anybody confused, but it is a commandment. It's one of the 613 commandments that God gave us in the Bible. And for those that say 613, trying to remember, the Dake Bible. I think it's Dake, D-A-K-E. For somebody that thinks that 613 commandments is a whole lot, they came up with a list of commandments in the New Testament, and it's 1,050 commandments in the New Testament. There's 613 in the Old. But anyway, let me read the verse, and we'll start out with this. It's Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 10. It says, when you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless the Lord your God for the good land which he has given you. Now, this really is what I think one of the most overlooked commandments in the Christian Sabbath community. Because this is an instruction. It's not a hypothetical. It's not real confusing. It's not hard to understand. It's really clear. When you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless the Lord your God for the good land which he's given you. Why? What's the purpose? When you read something in your Bible and it's clear like this, and you're not doing it, even if you are doing it, do you ever ask yourself the question, why did he say to do this? And if you're not doing it, then the question should be, why am I not doing this? Because this is pretty clear. Now, most people would say, oh, it's not such of a big deal. It's not a biggie. It's not like murder, stealing, something like that. But it's still a commandment. There's a lot of them out there. It might not seem like a biggie to us, but there is a reason that God gives us every commandment that he does. So let me bring this up. Let me tell you my theory of why I think that most people in the Sabbath community don't do this. One word, really simple: tradition. People don't do it. So the kids grow up and it's not done. What do you think they're going to do? They're not going to do it. It's passed down from one generation to another. The leaders come and go. They get old. They die sick. They die, whatever. It's not taught. Tradition. So I want to talk a little bit about tradition first, and then I want to talk about this commandment and give you some theory of why I think God gave it. Now, it doesn't matter if my theory is right or wrong. If he says do it, you just do it, whether you understand it or not. But sometimes tradition can be harmless. Sometimes it could even be good. Sometimes they can be bad. Let's look at a tradition that's actually a good one. Matthew chapter 14, verse 19. It says, read it. Then, talking about Jesus, then he commanded the multitudes to sit down on the grass, and he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and broke and gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes. Now, this isn't a command or commandment. You can go through the Bible, you can go through the Torah, and you won't find a law that says before you eat, you have to bless your food, look up into heaven and bless it and thank God. The command is to do it afterwards. But obviously, this isn't the only place it talks about Jesus taking something and blessing it and then giving it to others. It's a good thing. So if you do this, it's a good thing. However, if it's your tradition to bless the food before you eat and then forget about God when you're done, that tradition is a bad thing. If that tradition causes you to stumble or opens up a gateway so that you forget to bless Him when you're done, then it's not a good tradition. Let's take a look at Mark chapter 7, verse 5. Because Jesus had a few things to say about traditions of men. It says, Then the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, Why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders? So this is all about traditions. But eat bread with unwashed hands. He answered and said to them, Well did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, you hold the traditions of men, the washings of pitchers and cups, and many other such things that you do. So here, Jesus' disciples weren't going through the ritual. It was very detailed about how you had to wash your hands and why are you allowing your disciples to violate these traditions of the elders? Because they were considered sacred and holy and mandatory, as if God had commanded them himself. But Jesus told them, He says, you guys are a bunch of hypocrites. It's because some of these traditions that you do cause you to violate actual commandments of God. All right, so let's continue on. Verse 9. He said to them, All too well you reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your tradition. For Moses said, Honor your father and mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say, if a man says to his father or mother, Whatever profit you might have received from me is Corban, that is, a gift to God, then you no longer let him do anything for his father or his mother, making the word of God of no effect through your tradition which you have handed down, and many such things you do. So he says, this wasn't the only thing. They had all kinds of traditions like this, that because they followed them, they violated God's laws. So again, if the tradition leads to us violating God's laws, the tradition is bad. So if we bless our food before eating it, and it's a gateway, or this habit causes us to forget to bless God after we ate it and our bellies are full, the tradition is wrong. We should do both. It's a good thing to thank God and ask for a blessing for everything we eat and everything else, not just limited to food, but for everything. It's good to thank Him and blessing for providing us with the ability to have food, to have the money to buy the food, to have the strength if you grow your own food, or for everything, from the time we wake up in the morning until the time we go to bed at night. I said, I want to give you some ideas of why I think that God, and it's based off of some verses, but God said to do this simple little thing. Let's pick it up in verse 11. Deuteronomy 8:11. It says, beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments, his judgments, and his statutes, which I command you today, lest when you have eaten and are full and have built beautiful houses and dwell in them, let me see here, got off track. 13. And when you have eaten and are full, built beautiful houses and dwell in them. Verse 13. And when your herds and your flocks multiply, and your silver and your gold are multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, when your heart is lifted up, and you forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, who led you through the great and terrible wilderness, or next verse 50, who led you through the great and terrible wilderness, in which were fiery serpents and scorpions and thirsty land where there was no water for you out of the flinty rock, who fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your fathers did not know, that he might humble you and that he might test you, to do you good in the end. Then you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hands have gained me this wealth. So it's supposed to be like a way of life, that everything we do, we start out with food, because most people will eat at least some twice, but at least most people 3 times a day, some more. And every time you eat and your physical needs have been satisfied, then you bless God for providing. And what does that do? That gets us in the habit of realizing that everything that we have is a gift from God that he's provided for us. And if you start out with your food and you do this 3 times a day, then it'll carry through with all the other blessings that he's given us. If we don't do it, what's he afraid of here that's going to happen? That somehow we're going to get all puffed up and we're going to think that we did this on our own. That we worked hard, we built this, we earned this, we figured this out. So it's all to get us in the mindset that it's not us, it all comes from God. And again, he starts with the food. Something that everybody's going to have to do multiple times a day. Verse 18. And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he swore to your fathers as it is this day. Then it shall be, if you by any means forget the Lord your God and follow other gods and serve them. So he says this is a gateway into forgetting him and going and following after pagan and false deities. Now you see why he gave us this commandment. Why it's really important. Why it's not a minor thing. And I'll be the first to admit, I forget to do this all the time. I do it when I remember. Almost always I can remember to ask him to bless the food before we eat, which is a good tradition. But a huge percentage of the time, I forget to follow the commandment to thank him after I eat. Going on, it says, I testify against you this day, you shall surely perish. As the nations which the Lord destroys before you, so you shall perish, because you would not be obedient to the voice of the Lord your God. So he says, This leads to our downfall. This leads to our destruction. God says his command is to make a part of our living to bless him for everything. He gives us everything he gives us and everything he does for us. This pattern is supposed to continue and become part of what we do the rest of our life. So it's really simple. If you're not doing this, guess what? You can start today. We're going to do it all as a group like we do every Sabbath. When we're done eating, we're going to ask them to bless the food before. But when we're done eating, then we come out here and we bless them for providing the food. And no, we're not asking him to bless us. We bless him. We are thankful and we praise him for what he did. Now, this subject also leads us into another aspect, something else that is really lacking in our tradition and in our lives. I don't care what the world's doing. I'm talking about the Sabbath community. Now, some do it, but most do not. What am I talking? Remember the commandment we started with, Deuteronomy 8:10. When you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless the Lord your God in the good land which he has given you. So does it make a little bit more sense now why he says to do this? We said this is a gateway. If you don't do it, he says we tend to forget that he gave us everything and it causes us to stumble and we sin. What if we do it, then it becomes part of the normal life, our habits, our traditions, the things we do every day, and then other things that he says and examples in the Bible that are there for us to, and we, almost all of us, we know this, we know the examples, but then we start doing what some of the patriarchs and some of the people in the Bible did. So let's take a look at some of them here. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created him. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, see here, starts out, first he creates them, and the very first thing he does is he blesses them. And he said, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and every living thing that moves on the earth. Now, as soon as the flood was over, that seems like, a very, very long time ago, which it was, 4,000 years or so, but it was 2,000 years into creation, from the beginning, from creation, I should say, roughly. And look what happened. The flood's over, and what goes on here? Genesis chapter 9, verse 1. So God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. So here God gives them a blessing, go on out. There's nothing out there. It's destroyed the whole year. 8 people alive. Go out. I bless you. Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. Rebuild it all. What did God do with Abraham when he called him? Some basic things that seem strange to us. Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. Now the Lord had said to Abraham, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. So God was going to bless Abraham, and then Abraham was going to be a blessing for others. Now, I'm not going to go through all the examples today of blessings in the Bible, the Genesis 48, the crossing of the hands, and, blessings that were given, Jacob and Esau, and, they're extremely important, and it matters. I'm not even going to get into the cursings, which are very important also, and something that shouldn't be done. Let's go on. 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 17. Let's read that. So they brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place in the midst of the tabernacle that David had erected for it. Then David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And when David had finished offering burnt offerings and peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of hosts. Now, most people would think, well, the really important part is that David built this temple to house the ark and to house the things. He built a house for God. But in the middle of all this, when it's put into service, he blesses the people. The king. Why is that so important? It's important enough that it's mentioned. Let's go back and look at Genesis chapter 5, because God blessed Adam and Eve. It says, this is the book of the genealogy of Adam. In the day that God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. He created them male and female and blessed them and called them mankind in the day that they were created. Over and over and over. And just take a concordance or something and look up blessed, blessing, and blessed. And look at all the verses that you're going to find with this. Families should bless one another. This is really important. You know, some people grow up and they're told, you're never going to amount to anything. You're just a lousy, no good, spoiled brat, whatever. There's cursings that come out of the parent's mouth and not the blessings. But Genesis chapter 24, verse 58, it says, then they called Rebekah and said to her, will you go with this man? And she said, I will. So they sent away Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, our sister, may you become the mother of thousands of 10,000s, and may your descendants possess the gates of those who hate them. You know, now you think it most time what happens when the daughter gets married, granddaughter, you know, they tell her, oh, we love you so much. I think you've chosen this wonderful man. Even if they're not quite so crazy about him, they want her to do good and her to do well. You see all the movies, you see all the real life experiences. When's the last time you saw somebody, the family, taking the bride and putting a blessing on her? That's outside of the customs that people do today in this country. Let's look at another one. Numbers chapter 6, starting in verse 23. There's commandments for priests. This is one of the commandments that God gave the priest. It says, speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, this is the way you shall bless the children of Israel. So even God told them that they had to do it in a specific way. Say to them, verse 24, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. So God commands the priest to bless Israel with these instructions, And then if the priests do this, God says that he will put his name and bless the people. Our blessing's important. This is what God wanted done. This is something that he intended. Let's look at Leviticus chapter 9, verse 22. They lifted up their hands when they did this. Leviticus 9:22 says, "And Aaron lifted his hand towards the people, blessed them." What's it talking about? This is the example of Aaron actually doing what he was commanded to do. Blessed them, and came down from offering the sin offering and the burnt offering and the peace offerings. Oh, the same thing that David was doing when he dedicated this house for God. What was the last thing Jesus did? Now, with Christians, there's a lot of concentration on the things Jesus said and did. I got it up there, so some of you are looking at it and reading it already. But did you realize what the last thing that Jesus did before he ascended into heaven? Luke 24:50. "And he led them out as far as Bethany, and he lifted up his hands and blessed them." Just like the high priest was commanded to bless the people, Jesus is our high priest. He was the high priest for us then. He was resurrected. He's getting ready to ascend to his Father. He lifted up his hands and blessed them. Now it came to pass while he blessed them that he was parted from them and carried up unto heaven. So the very last act that he did while his feet were on the earth, he's resurrected, returned to his glory, he blessed the people. Why? Because it was extremely important. We don't understand the importance of doing this. What did the people do? So it tells us, just keep reading, but what did the people do? Now they just saw Jesus ascend into heaven. Last thing he does is he blesses them. Verse 52, Luke 24:52. "And they worshipped him and returned to Jerusalem with great joy, and were continually in the temple praising and blessing God." Just don't raise your hand, don't send me a text, don't whatever. How many people have thought about this and how important it is and how often it is in the Bible with all of these examples? And there's many of them. Let's look at another thing that the commandment to bless can change. James 3:6. "And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. The tongue is so set among our members that it defiles the whole body and sets on fire the course of nature. And it is set on fire by hell. For every bird and beast, of reptile and creature to see is tamed and has been tamed by mankind, but no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. With it we bless our God and Father, and with it we curse men, who have been made in the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceeds blessings and cursings. My brethren, these things not to be so." It's my tongue that gets me in trouble all the time. The number one biggest thing that gets me in trouble is my tongue. How about you? Out of everything that I do, it's the things that I say. Have you cursed or blessed those that you love and care about today? If you're not in the habit, I'm going to propose something. If you're not in the habit of blessing others, especially those that you love and care about, not limited to that, but especially there, it's a whole lot easier to be cursing. It's outside of your character. If it's part of your character, your tradition, and your pattern to bless, out of the ordinary then would be to curse. So if it's part of that pattern and the way of life and everything you do that starts with every time you eat, what's more likely to happen? See, that part of my theory. God commanded this so that this would become our way of life. Now, I don't know how many of you have dogs, but even Mary and me, if her little ankle biters come running in, what are you doing here? Did you go and what did you do back there while we were gone? Couldn't you wait till we get home? You're always cursing them when they see you and that. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm in trouble. If they've done something, they couldn't hold it because we were gone 12, 14 hours, whatever, and they crapped on the floor. They know they're in trouble, and they're going to get yelled at. They're going to get... But if every time you see them, you go, oh, you're such a good boy. Oh, you're such a good girl. And you pet them and you praise them. And what happens when you come home? It doesn't even have to be after multiple hours. You can go outside and come back in the house 3 minutes later, and they act like you've been gone all day long. They're going crazy. This can have, well, if we can do it for a dog, why not each other? This can have long-term, lifelong repercussions that are either good or bad. Have you cursed or blessed those that you love and care about? The last meal you ate, did you bless God for providing it for you? If we start, even today, with this one ignored commandment that is very clear, it can transform us in so many more ways. It was intended much more than just thanking them after we eat. If that's the only thing we do, that's a good start, because he says to do it, but it was intended, and he even says, so that you don't forgive me, so that you don't go following after pagan deities, so that I can bless you, so that you can be a blessing to others. It's part of his plan. So are you going to put this into practice in your life? That's my question for you. Now, for a good part of, or for part of the tradition that is good, we can start with this as long as we don't forget the other.